Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Tider Insider Television. I am Gary Harris. Sitting across the studio from TiderInsider.com is Rodney Orr, and we have a lot to cover. So sit back, relax, and prepare to be entertained. Alabama was able to host the 8A game this season. That was news because remember last year there was no spring ball, there was no 8A game, so it was the first one since 2019, and it officially put an end to Alabama's spring practices for the 2021 spring, the 15th of 15 practices. Quarterback Bryce Young really, I think, proved that he's worthy of all the praise that he had been receiving. He made big plays in this game. He has a quick release. He got the ball out on time. There you see him hitting Roydell Williams for a big play. He is certainly the leader in the clubhouse to be the starting quarterback, and based on what we saw Saturday, you have to like his chances. Thought Paul Tyson did some good things as the number 2 quarterback with the Crimson team. And, of course, the young receivers, a lot of eyes on them. Ajay Hall was impressive to say the least. There were other young receivers, Holden one that stepped up, and these 2 tight ends, 81 and 19, Cam Latu and Billingsley, Jaleel Billingsley, they are going to be a lot for opposing defenses to handle next year, Rodney. So I kind of set you up there, but I thought there was a lot to be excited about. You look at the score, there's Latu there. Watch the stutter step. 13-10 doesn't really look like much, but I enjoyed the game and thought it was a good performance by everybody out there.
Yeah, I think when you look at that, Gary, it's what we expected. It's what we thought, what we've talked about here on this show, all this young talent that we've seen on both sides of the ball. I mean, you lose all those players on offense that Alabama's lost, great players, a lot of first-round draft picks on that side of the ball. A guy like Bryce Young steps up, plays extremely well. You've got a lot of really impressive young backs. Again, the offensive line, I think you've got a great foundation with Chris Owens. Emil Ekiyor didn't participate this spring, but at right guard, he's going to be a standout. You know that. Evan Neal, of course, a great left tackle, and you've got some young players that they're developing. Feel really good about that. You talked about those 2 tight ends. Cameron Latu, that was a big-time play. He's had several of them this spring. Jaleel Billingsley, we know about all his talent, those young wide receivers. So offensively, I think you have to be really encouraged. Now, there's a lot to polish up on, a lot of improvement, a lot of development to take place, but they've got a lot of time to do that. And then on the defensive side, Gary, I think we saw this Alabama defense has a chance to be considerably better because of the experience they've got. They've got a lot of young players, so I think they're going to have some more depth this year. So you have to really be encouraged by what you saw on Saturday. All
right, more analysis in a moment, Rodney. Let's hear from the veteran wide receiver Slade Bolden now on Bryce Young. Slade was impressed as well with his young quarterback on Saturday.
Trying to improve on himself and, also bringing the offense together. He's shown some leadership skills. He's also done a great job of executing on the field. And I think there were some plays that, we would like to have back, but overall I thought we executed very well as an offense. I thought Bryce did well as well.
Indeed, Rodney. And let's get back to the young receivers, and we'll start with the ones that Bryce was working with. Trayshawn Holden, I mean, you look at 9 catches for 89 yards, that gets your attention. Slade Bolden looked the part of a great slot guy that he's going to be 5 for 56. Roydell Williams out of the backfield, 4 for 65. Billingsley, 3 for 49 with 2 for 65, including that 59-yard touchdown. Javon Baker caught a ball. Keelan Robinson caught a ball. And just by me calling that out, you see how Bryce Young is willing to spread the ball around. And I think that's important in Bill O'Brien's offense. Maybe we won't have the jet sweeps. Maybe we won't have as much motion as we have with Sark, but you're going to have a lot of guys out in the pattern.
Yeah, I think you're right about the receivers, Gary. Again, I think that they're still developing. There you see Trayshawn Holden. I thought he had a really nice day. Look, I thought the catch at the goal line, at the pylon, not only was it a tremendous throw, it was a fantastic one-handed catch, and Jaquez Robinson was actually in good position, but they said it wasn't a touchdown. But, yeah, I mean, you look at Slade Bolden, I think he's going to have a chance to play several different positions there, move him around a little bit. So really encouraged by what I saw about those receivers that you mentioned, those tight ends. I think the next few months as they develop and get into that August camp, it's going to be a big, important time for them.
And on the other side, the Crimson side, with Paul Tyson and Braxton Barker at quarterback, Jace McClellan out of the backfield, 7 catches, 62 yards. Ajay Hall, 4 catches, 72 yards, and boy, he is impressive as well. Ty Jones-Bell had 3 catches. Xavier Williams, 3 catches. Robbie Oots, the new tight end, had a catch there. Major Tennyson had a catch. So it wasn't like the other side didn't have some guys making plays in the passing game as well.
Yeah. You mentioned Ajay Hall. Again, he looks like a future star to me. Certainly had a big day, a great day. Taiyo Jones-Bell, another guy that came in as a freshman last year. This year, his second year in the program. I thought he showed some nice quickness and did some things. So, again, you mentioned Jace McClellan. I think Jace McClellan as a running back, but as a receiver out of the backfield, can do so many different things. He's really versatile, just like Roydell Williams, same thing. So those guys are really two talented running backs, and really like both of those guys, as well as Brian Robinson, of course, and the others that they have. But those two stood out to me.
Bryce wound up 25 of 44 for 333 and a touchdown, that 59-yarder to Latu. And defensively, you kind of mentioned it, but a lot of athletes. And boy, there were some young guys that stepped up. Jamarian Latham out of Pickens County on the defensive line. Kenoi Kennedy, second-year linebacker. The freshman from Mobile Christian, Deontay Lawson making plays over the field. Buddy, this is an athletic group.
There you see number 32. Remember him, Deontay Lawson, played for Ronnie Cottrell, former Alabama coach. Played for him at Mobile Christian, Gary. Fantastic looking young player. You mentioned Kenoi Kennedy. I thought Jackson Bratton looked good as well. You mentioned Jamarian Latham. A lot of young players. You talk about players in the secondary. I thought Jalen Armour-Davis did a really nice job. And I tell you, one of the most encouraging things to me that I saw, Gary, was the competition between the wide receivers and DBs. A lot of contested plays out there. Both sides won their share, but it was really some intense battles.
Indeed, there was. It was a very entertaining game. And keep in mind, there were 10 or 12 guys that did not participate. And a lot of true freshmen that are still not on campus that are coming in this summer. So there's more coming in the fall. All right, it's time now for Coach Talk. And even though I think Coach Saban is proving that he's still in the prime of his coaching career, there continues to be speculation on just how much long he'll do it. And after A-Day, he was asking about it again.
Coach Saban's here as long as Coach Saban can make a contribution to the team in a positive way, and that's my commitment to the organization, the university, and the players. If I felt like I couldn't do the job for whatever reasons, then I think it would be time for somebody else to do it. So that answers that question.
Indeed it does. And Coach Saban not showing any signs of slowing down. He was everywhere on that field. The 2021 recruiting class was ranked number 1. Really, 24/7 Sports voted it the greatest recruiting class ever based on their statistical data that since they've been keeping it, 2020 an undefeated 13-0 national championship season. Rodney, again, I understand, you know, we think of coaches, he's going to turn 70 later this year on Halloween, and people start saying, oh my gosh, it's time to quit. But you know what? CEOs of companies, we don't ask when they're going to step down. Politicians, we don't ask when they're going to step down. This is his job. This is what he loves to do. And like you heard him say, Rod, as long as he feels like he can still do it, why the rush? Why the pressure to step down from some people?
You know, it really is amazing because I don't really recall anyone asking this about Bill Snyder at Kansas State. How long did he coach? 78? I understand it's Kansas State, okay, but he had a really good program. It was one of the top 10, 15 programs in the country at one time. Joe Paterno went to, how old was he?
80 plus.
80?
Yeah, he was in his 80s.
I mean, you know, and again.
Bowden was in his 80s.
Yeah, so, man, I don't know how long he'll go. But I remember, too, and I know you'll remember this, same thing with Coach Bryant. I mean, it started when he was in his early 60s and went on and on and on. But, you know, it looks like Nick Saban, he's in good shape. He's very energetic. You saw him in that game. He was certainly very very intense in that the opportunity that we had to see him on Saturday. So I think he's got a lot left in him.
I do, too. And I know that's bad news for the opponents, but it is what it is. All right, let's talk about some rings. Alabama basketball received their championship rings on Sunday for their great season, SEC regular season and tournament champions, Sweet 16, record of 26-7. So good for them. And then on Monday, Alabama football also received rings for the SEC championship, Rose Bowl, and national championship. And they did that at the annual Steak and Beans dinner. The national championship ring features representation of points scored in the SEC championship, CFP semifinal, and the championship game, as well as stones signifying the 18 national championship victories by the Crimson Tide. You like jewelry, you like bling, come to Bama. There's plenty of it to go around. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, Alabama football locked in a 6th commitment last week for the class of 2022, and this one has been 4 or 5 years in the making. We'll explain. And Alabama gymnastics competed in the NCAA championships over the weekend on Friday out in Fort Worth, Texas. They had a really good show and came up a little short, but there were some individuals that took home some titles. We'll have that next here on TITV, and we'll be getting to your phone calls as always. You see the information there on your screen, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Go ahead and call in now. Email us at the address on your screen, or you can also reach us on Twitter. Just make sure you use that hashtag TITV. We'll be looking for it. More TITV after this. Tuesday nights in Tuscaloosa means Tighter Insider Television. I'm Gary Harris, sitting across the studio from Rodney Orr. And Alabama, I think recruiting in Mississippi, probably not as many numbers as you would think, but boy, the impact players that Alabama's been able to sign throughout the years from the Magnolia State has been impressive, and I think they might have landed another one. Four-star defensive tackle Jaheim Otis of Columbia, Mississippi. That's Walter Payton's hometown. And when I say big, I've seen him listed everywhere from 6'4", 350 to 6'6". But he announced last week on social media that he's committing to the Crimson Tide over LSU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and others. He's the 6th commit for 2022, and he received an offer back somewhere around the 8th or 9th grade, Rodney, when he was 6'4" and 286. So he's a 4-star recruit, number 3 player in Mississippi, and for a big guy, he kind of has that Tim Smith type of deal. He can really move. He's really athletic, and he is huge, Rod.
You know, and talking to his high school coach too, Gary, he said the one thing about him, I mean, you look at him, I mean, he's 350 and he's not sloppy, okay? But if you really want to trim him down a little bit, get him back to maybe a little bit more quickness. Talking to his high school coach, the one thing that he said that was a real factor was Alabama's strength and conditioning program, David Ballou, Dr. Matt Ray, but also the nutritional program and how they can develop players physically. But everything else, I mean, this kid's got it. He certainly has a lot of character, work ethic, great size, all of those things that you mentioned.
Yeah, and he'll continue to be recruited, of course, by all those schools, but he seems pretty solid to Alabama. And again, I mean, I know this day and age it's about offense, it's about skill players, it's about explosive players, but you still better be good up front on defense in this league, and he's one of those kind of players that can make a difference. All right, let's talk some baseball. Alabama took the series over the weekend, 2-1 against the in-state rival Auburn, improved to 22-13 overall, 7-8 in the SEC. That's what's impressive. Remember, they were just 2-7 a couple of weeks ago. Sam Prater is the SEC Player of the Week after 3 home runs, 6 runs batted in, 4 runs scored, 2 walks, and a pair of hit by pitches. All the 3 games in that series were decided by 1 run. Alabama walked it off twice. That's the thing about Auburn. Maybe their record doesn't show it, but they're a really, really good club, and that was a big series win for Alabama. And they got some momentum. They're playing North Alabama tonight. We'll have highlights at 10, and then the Crimson Tide goes to Kentucky this weekend. And Alabama softball, ranked number 3, welcome in number 4 ranked Florida for a weekend series, and they lost the series 2-1, but what makes it even hurt more is right there. You see Claire Jenkins' right knee buckle. She had the ACL injury in 2019 to the left knee. We confirmed today with Alabama that it is an ACL injury to the right knee. She's going to miss the rest of the season, and you hate to hear that for her. But again, Alabama did bounce back on Sunday and win 4-2 after losing the first 2 games of that series. Alabama gymnastics was in Fort Worth, Texas, as they were attempting to win their first national title since 2012. Unfortunately for the Crimson Tide, they came up just short in the semifinal, finishing 3rd in their session by like 25 thousandths of a point. I mean, it was just, they were right there, but they did have 2 individual national champions, as sophomore Louisa Blanco took home the individual balance beam title, and senior Lexi Graber took home the national championship as an individual in the floor exercise. And Alabama's Ryan Wyatt is the SEC Female Swimmer of the Year. She's the first Crimson Tide woman to ever capture the honor. How about that? She finished in the top 5 in all 3 individual events she competed in at the NCAA Championships, taking the silver medal in both the 100 and 200 backstroke and finishing 5th in the 100 butterfly. She also scored as part of the Tide's 200 and 400 medley relays at the NCAA. Wyatt finished the Women's NCAA Championship meet with 48 points, the highest individual point scorer among SEC competitors. Well, still to come on TITV, change is coming for both men's and women's basketball. We'll have more on who's coming and who's going next. And we'll also be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, you see the phone number, 205-348-9882. Call in now, Tighter Insider Nation. We want to hear from you. TITV will return right after this commercial message. Alabama men's basketball leading scorer Jaden Shackelford is testing the NBA draft water. Shaq announced on social media Thursday night that he's entering the draft but will not hire an agent, leaving the door open for a return to University of Alabama. I don't blame him one bit for kind of checking out his status, seeing where he's at, but I think he'll be back for UA. I think that would be the best move for him. We'll see. And Jordan Lewis plans to transfer out of the women's basketball program for her final season of college basketball. She ranks in the top 10 in most of the categories geared toward point guard. She's been a fabulous player, including 9th on the all-time scoring list. She's going to have 2 degrees next month from Alabama and simply wants to go somewhere else for her final season, but she will be missed. That is for sure. All right, welcome back into TITV alongside Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. It's time to get to the phone lines. And first up tonight is our pal Sammy, the Tomato Man, up there in Walker County. Good evening, Sammy. I guess you'll have some tomatoes here, in a couple months for me?
Getting close, Gary. Looking for a May 1st kickoff.
All right.
So preparation is underway. The process is in effect. And just enjoyed the job y'all do, guys. And the A-Day game, great to see that young talent. I'm glad the defense is going to be kind of build up some depth this year and have some great young talent. I think Deontay Loss is they're going to have a hard time keeping him off the field. And that young receiver, Algia Hall, or if I've got it correct or whatever.
Algia Hall,
I like that big frame on him. He looks like he's going to be great. I'm sorry that Rockert had a bad day, but we all know what he's capable of doing. And for some reason or other, Gary, on ESPN, I don't know if anybody else had that problem, but I lost the feed on the game in the third or fourth quarter.
Well, I was at the game, Sammy, so I don't know, but I hate that for you. But to get back to your point about young talent, we talked about a lot of it. Another guy I want to mention, Rodney, is out of Pinson Valley, the young cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. You talk about a playmaker now. He's got a lot of ability on defense, could help you in the kicking game. And, of course, he wants to play basketball too, but he's another guy that showed up big on Saturday.
Yeah, he sure did, Gary. And I don't know if you mentioned or we mentioned him earlier, but how about Jamarian Latham? We've talked about him so much. That young defensive lineman won the defensive line, the lineman MVP, the Dwight Stevenson Award. So, you know what? Like you said, Sammy, there is a ton of impressive young talent.
All right, phone line's open right now, 205-348-9882. Thank you, Sammy, for the call. Let's get to an email. This is from Lawrence and Hoover. Do you think Jalen Milroe will have a role this season? Great question. We did not get to see Jalen on Saturday. Unfortunately, he was one of the players held out. But, Rodney, you've been talking to some sources that think number 15, and not only is he going to be good in the future, they think he may very well factor in the short term as well.
Well, you know, again, we'll see because he can do so many different things, Gary. He's a guy that is big, strong, fast, great arm. I mean, he can do things in the run game. He can do a lot of different things. I think he's extremely talented. And look, we hadn't said much about Paul Tyson, I don't think, but I thought Paul really, he's been slowed by a hamstring injury this spring. I thought he showed some nice things, Gary. He made some really nice throws, I thought. But, yeah, that's going to be a nice competition between Paul Tyson and Jalen Milroe in the fall.
Yeah, bottom line is you lose Mac Jones. The year before that, you lose Tua. But you still got Bryce, Paul, Jalen Milroe, and Braxton Barker got in there and made a couple of big plays, too.
Sure did.
All right, thanks for the phone call and the email. We'll be back with more on Tider Insider TV. More phone calls and emails right after this. Don't you touch that dial. Well, Jasmine Walker became the first Alabama women's basketball player drafted in the WNBA since 2005, and she wasn't just drafted. She was taken number 7 overall in the first round by the Los Angeles Sparks, one of the top franchises in the league. She's the first rounder since Tasha Mills back in 2000. What a player she was for Alabama. She averaged 19 points, 9.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists this past season. Also named All-SEC first team. So welcome back into TITV. We're going to get right back to the phone lines and welcome in Steve from right here in Tuscaloosa. Hey, Steve, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How about you, Gary?
Doing great, my friend.
I just want to tell you and Rodney something.
Okay.
Y'all make football, basketball, gymnastics, softball, baseball so interesting on your show. Y'all do a fantastic job. You're lively, you're informative, you're knowledgeable, And I just want to let you know that I appreciate the hell out of the job that y'all do. And I want to give you both just a big roll tide.
Well, Steve, I'll tell you this, and I mean it. I'm not just saying this because you called in. I do appreciate it. You know, people say sometimes you do a good job, and sometimes they don't. But I think Rodney feels the same way I do. Really, it does. You know, regardless of what you do for a living, when people tell you that you're good at it or you do a good job, you appreciate it. I really appreciate that.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate it too, Steve. And listen, I tell you, it's really just, and I know I can speak for Gary too, it's just the passion that we grew up with.
That's right. It's a labor of love, that's for sure. Thank you so much, Steve. All right, let's get to an email. This is from Marcy in Mobile. Will Kenoi Kennedy start this year? Rodney, I don't know. I think he'll push. I mean, I still think Jalen Moody's the favorite to start next to Christian Harris there at the inside. But, boy, I tell you what, he's a playmaker, and whether he's starting or not, I think you can factor in on seeing him on special teams and on the defensive side of the ball.
You know, his high school coach, Eric Collier, told me, he said, look, you know, and he coached C.J. Mosley as well, said he may not be C.J. Mosley in terms of just the polished football player, but he's a better athlete.
Wow.
That's saying a lot.
It
and
is.
you saw some of that quickness, I think, Gary, on Saturday.
Indeed, you did. He was all over the field. All right, thanks for the phone calls and the emails tonight. Still to come, Alabama's adapted athletics department keeps bringing in championships, and this past weekend was no different. More on wheelchair tennis coming up next. Oh, man, is it a beautiful night in the City of Champions. We'll be back after this. Alabama adapted athletics under the direction of Dr. Brent Harden is just awesome. And they won their 6th wheelchair national championship over the weekend, all of them coming since 2013. They beat Michigan 3-0 to win the title. And then on Monday, Thomas Vinos won the USTA Collegiate Singles Wheelchair Tennis Championship. Just added more trophies to the adapted athletics dynasty here in T-Town. All right, that's going to do it for tonight's program. We really appreciate you watching. And, you know, Steve called in and thanked Rodney. And I want to thank Julia and Stu for helping us out, the producers. And Julia's winding down her time with us here, so we couldn't do it without them. If you missed any of the program tonight, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 after the news at 10, or find it anytime online at WVUA23.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. Good night and roll tide.